I believe the issue is how can we cause the largest number of people to understand that we are in fact all one, to understand our unity.
The environment has to be changed so that we are supported in a way where we respect each other, while our value systems have to understand that we cannot survive any longer through our logical reasoning with the competitive mentality that's been perpetuated for so many generations. If the environment continues to reinforce this selfishness, it's going to be that much more difficult to climb out of it. So if we create an environment that helps us to have the courage to give, and it rewards and reinforces giving, then I think we'll move much more quickly into that type of bestowal mentality.
What we're beginning to see now is the fall of all the major institutions, whether it's economy, politics, education, healthcare, every fundamental level of institution in the world. So there's going to have to be changes at every level. And it starts with education and awareness. Why? Because the knowledge we bought into of who we are and why we're here turns out to be archaic beliefs that are not supporting our survival. We have to go from our old limiting beliefs that brought us to the current state of the world, rewrite those beliefs so that as we take the next step forward, we do so with new awareness, new power, and a new understanding of where we want to go. So we need to change education.
Just imagine, what would happen if we changed our environment completely? What if we would constantly hear in the news, through art, entertainment, advertisement, that we're all interdependent, that we're all interconnected as one integral system? How would our world look like? How would you relate to all the others in that system?
You would suddenly begin to feel that you relate to others as somewhat close to you. You will be less concerned about how do I exploit the other, how do I manipulate others, take advantage of them. You'd begin to see that the other person is somehow close to you. You'll have some affinity towards the others, like they belong to you. You'll start considering them just like you think about your children or your family. You take them into consideration when you think about doing something in life. You think, how will it affect them? So that is the kind of change we need to go through. And it can happen to us through the proper environment that we create for ourselves.
Well, we have these negative emotional brain circuits of competitiveness and greed and jealousy and anger and what have you, but we can also create a reality in which we make positive emotions for ourselves and in our relationships, and we can create positive emotional brain circuits that we have created by voluntary acts of loving, deliberately, by practicing. That will then mollify the negative emotional brain circuit so we can overcome our base desires.
We began to think of emotions as having a kind of collective identity, as if they're emotional stampedes in human populations, a kind of a quiet riot that is just below the surface at all times. Because when we mapped this network, we were able to find clusters of happy and unhappy people in the network, and we were able as well to show that happy people are able to influence others to become happy, and that happiness can spread from person to person to person to person.
And it's this kind of view of the human superorganism that has really started to change the way we think about ourselves as human beings. We are connected. We are connected in ways that these other social species are, like schools of fish and flocks of birds.
Animals have this. So-called primitive people have this. We have seemed to have lost it.
Through our intensive egoistic orientation,
if you recover this connection, then we will behave with greater solidarity to each other. We will extend our solidarity that exists in a family. We can extend it over larger areas, ultimately to the whole human family and to the living environment.
We can encourage people in all walks of life, in all kinds of organizations, to come to the notion of true global family and implementing the kind of world we really all dream of.
What has increasingly been found is that the happiest people have vibrant social networks. They work hard at cultivating the relationships with other people. So it's the togetherness, the bringing people together that brings people the most joy.
In some ways, science has always recognized that everything is always interconnected. But everything is also interdependent, and you can't study everything all at once. So science has been very good at sort of slicing up the world into little pieces and then diving deeply down each little piece, and that becomes a discipline. And it's very easy to forget that that piece actually is still connected to everything else. We conveniently forget it, which creates something which is ultimately a whole system, but it becomes fractured. It may be that some small percentage of scientists are naturally drawn to this idea of how does the thing that I'm studying fit in a larger context? And so for scientists who think about that, they eventually get to the idea of, if they push it far enough, that the universe is really just one big thing.
We ask the question, why are we here as human beings? The answer is then left to something as simple and disastrously bad as, there's no reason for us to be here. We're just accidents of genetics, and therefore we could do anything we want because we weren't intended to be here in the first place. So we have a pretty big disregard to our relationship and the world around us and the nature that we live in, because we believe that organisms just got here by accident. When you look at the planet Earth, you find that we live in a very narrow zone that supports life. A perfect combination of gases in the environment, a perfect temperature and all this, and it stays constant, which has been a very unusual event of how can a planet keep a constancy in a world where everything is dynamic around it? And the answer is because nature has created one organism after another organism to keep the environment in balance and compensate for the ranges of activities that occur around us. So we keep what is called homeostasis. Very simple example is this. When the world was primarily plants, the environment, which had carbon dioxide and some oxygen in it when they first started, later became depleted of carbon dioxide, and oxygen increased because the plants were using the carbon dioxide continuously and releasing the oxygen continuously, and the balance shifted. And there was so much oxygen on this planet that the planet was flammable. So at times, lightning strikes would hit and burn up all the oxygen and burn up the planet. Life was not sustainable. So nature created a balance. And the balance was called animals. Animals breathe in oxygen and release carbon dioxide, which is the complete reverse of what the plants were doing. So why is this relevant? Because when you put animals and plants in the same environment, as the plants take in carbon dioxide and release oxygen, the animals take in oxygen and release carbon dioxide. This creates a cycle and a balance and harmony. So animal introduction was not just a random event. It was required to keep balance in. Now look at life as a seesaw that goes up and down. And I go like this. As I put one organism on one side, it throws the balance off and tilts the seesaw this way. So nature puts another organism on this side to bring the balance back. So I said, where are humans in this seesaw? And why is that important? Because humans have so much power that if we're not clear of what we're doing, we can take the seesaw and put a little weight on one side and shift the entire balance of nature. And then we have to learn to come back and shift the balance back again. Well, without our awareness of how we fit into nature, we lost sight of the fact that every other organism has been involved in keeping the environment more stable. We weren't to manipulate the environment. But if the balance now shifts way off because of humanity, then it means that nature will no longer support human life on this planet. It says that we have upset the balance of the environment and are causing our own extinction. So the writing is on the wall. We have to work collectively to create harmony back in the environment. When we become aware of this, we can engage in that activity as the primary direction of human civilization.